Hello, my name's Isabelle. One day I went to work with my mum after school. She has a small office in the business village, and there's a pond and a little space where I can play. It was a sunny afternoon, so I asked if I could take my skateboard out to the path around the pond and practice. Outside, I saw a group of ducks waddling around and stopped skateboarding to watch them. There were so many ducks. I decided to name them the Mallard Family and gave each one their own name, just like I have my own name. I called them Oscar, Evie, Ellie, Vicky, Max, Billy, Ella, Sebastian, Ben, Matthew, and Elia. I love watching them waddle around and play and eat together. Mum said I can visit every day after school, so now I get to watch them and feed them daily. The Mallard family loved to swim in the pond. I like taking lots of pictures of them. When Ellie and Vicky dip their heads in the water, trying to catch their food, it makes me giggle. One day, on the other side of the pond, Max, Billy, and Ella were swimming around looking for food and drinking water. Then Billy found something shiny and called Ella and Max over to show them what he had found. Later that afternoon, I walked towards the bridge over where Matthew, Ben, and Ellie were swimming while Sebastian flew around them. I saw Mr. Douglas on the bridge and greeted him with a big smile. I joined him and we walked towards the pond. Mr. Douglas and Mr. Chris work in the business village where my mum works. They're always kind to me. And the ducks love Mr. Chris and Mr. Douglas and follow them around the village sometimes. We saw Mr. and Mrs. Mallard sunbathing while watching the children play in the pond. Mr. Douglas and I found Mr. Chris standing next to the pond. We both greeted Mr. Chris and said, "Good afternoon." Mr. Chris replied, "Hello to you both, and good afternoon. Are you enjoying spending time with the Mallard family?" I said, "Yes, Mr. Chris, I love spending time around them, but they are a little bit cheeky when I was having my tea this afternoon." Mr. Douglas said, "Yes, I agree with Isabelle. The ducks weren't acting very nice during their mealtime either. They were fighting for food, quacking very loudly, and not staying in line. They were being very rude." The two men decided that they would teach the ducks some discipline, so they would treat each other with kindness and respect and also stay in line. While we were chatting about the ducks misbehaving, we didn't notice that Ben, Ella, and Vicky had overheard the conversation and flown off to tell the other ducks. Mr. Douglas went looking for Mrs. Mallard, who he had seen earlier walking around his office with one of her ducklings. Daisy had been so excited to see Mr. Douglas that she started pecking at his shoes. Some of the Mallard family were waddling around the stairs when they saw Mr. Chris. Ben, Ella, and Vicky soon found part of their family busy listening to Mr. Chris singing songs. "Quack, quack, 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 I love you, my ducks. Quacks, quacks, quack, even when you make a muck. Quacks, quack, quack, you are really the coolest ducks." After Mr. Chris finished singing to the ducks, he returned to his office for work. Then Ben, Ella, and Vicky went about quacking loudly and telling all the ducks what they had overheard. Ella started pleading, "Please listen to what we have to say. We overheard Mr. Chris and Mr. Douglas talking about how he was not pleased with our behaviour during our mealtime." Ben added, "They also said we were very noisy and did not stay in line and jumped on each other, fighting for food. We were being rude and they want to teach us manners." Sebastian exclaimed, "Oh no, I'm sorry. I get so excited when Mr. Chris and Mr. Douglas visit that I get too loud. I did not mean to jump on food and cause trouble." Evie replied, "Don't worry, Sebastian. It's okay. We can work on it as a family." Vicky added, "Yes, let's find the rest of the family." They agreed to get help from the rest of the family, including Mr. and Mrs. Mallard and Elia, who was the smartest in the family. Elia is the leader duck, so they went to find her first. The ducks flew around and searched for Elia. They finally found her waddling around in the trees. Sebastian called Ellie's name to get her attention, and she turned and asked calmly, What happened? Sebastian answered, We need your help, Elia. Elia listened carefully and then decided to call a meeting with all the ducks. All the ducks came together, busily quacking with each other. Elia stepped to the front and said, Since I am the leader of the flock, I shall start the meeting about your recent behaviour. We need to start behaving better. But how do we do that? The ducks asked. Elia replied, Let's see. As a start, you could try and be more careful and calmer when there are visitors. Sebastian replied, I believe we can be more careful and calmer. I believe we can share our food with other ducks, be quiet, and walk together and stay in line. All the ducks started quacking. I believe I can. I can discipline myself not to be loud and jump around at dinner time. And I can also stay in line, said Vicky, Ben, and the other ducks one after the other. I heard lots of quacking and walked towards the ducks to see what the fuss was about. Then I saw Elia quacking and instructed them to follow along with today's lessons and show Mr. Chris and Mr. Douglas they could do it. Elia said, Quacks, I believe in you. You can do it. After waiting for the ducks to settle down from their excitement, Mr. Douglas called out, Quick, Quacks, quietly get in line and follow me. They all listened and started to follow Mr. Douglas in a line, bobbing their heads happily as they waddled along. Sebastian said, Quacks, look at us walking beautifully in a line. After the lessons, with bobbing heads, the ducks happily went to see Mr. Chris, who gave them a special treat. The ducks decided to go swimming in the pond, all swimming nicely in a straight line. Sebastian said, Thank you, family, for looking after me. Ella added, We are family and happy to help each other. We should remember to always believe in ourselves. Sebastian bobbed his head happily in reply. After swimming, they all walked together in a line on the grass, shaking their tails to dry themselves off as they practiced some more. It was the end of today's lesson and time to go back home. I saw Elia and Sebastian chatting and asked, Did you have fun today? The ducks quacked in reply, Yes, we enjoyed learning today. The next morning, Mr. Chris was feeding the ducks before they flew away for a day trip. Mr. Douglas was not there, so Elia asked Mr. Chris where Mr. Douglas had gone. Mr. Chris told them, If you fly in a straight line and quack quietly, you might see Mr. Douglas flying in his plane. If you fly by him, you should thank him. Oh my God, Elia thought. They are making plans to have a flying duck race.